Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 58 of Piv's NXT Point of View podcast. My name is Bill Pivots. Before we get started, if you guys want, follow me on Twitter at bpiv_sports. And if you don't mind to help me out, rate, review the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, wherever else you guys listen to the show. So this week was the fallout from NXT TakeOver Dallas. But before I get into that, how awesome was TakeOver? I said it on my review last week that this is the best TakeOver that I've seen. The stars that were there, the matches. It was just an amazing show. It definitely outshined WrestleMania as probably the best show of the weekend, bar none. It was an amazing show, top to bottom. So this week we got some of the fallout from that. We had the Apollo Crews Elias Sampson match. But we got started with a recap of TakeOver, some highlights before the opening video. This week's episode actually was taped before TakeOver, similar to what they did in Brooklyn, how they taped an episode of NXT before the actual show. Get double usage out of the arena. Makes sense. The announcers were Tom Phillips and Corey Graves, and they threw it over to some new broadcaster named Kathy Kelly. She was standing behind some sort of green screen with the TakeOver Dallas background in Connecticut. She then highlighted Apollo Crews' debut on Monday. She then transitioned to TakeOver and then started talking about the NXT Tag Team match. We saw some highlights from the match, and then the anonymous interviewer interviewed American Alpha. He congratulated them on their win. Jason Jordan said it was a lot of hard work, some ups and downs, and a lot of emotion. And he was actually, you could tell he was really holding back, that he wanted to just cry in happiness that it's finally gotten to this point for him in his career. Gable said that they've come up short many times before, but they couldn't let it happen again. You could hear Austin Aries' music hit in the background. So you knew this was taped during TakeOver, but still, it just gave it that immediate feel that you got the interview right after they won. Gable then talked up Jason Jordan so much and saying how he deserves this moment right now. They both hugged and then walked away. We got a commercial break, and then back from that, Kathy Kelly was talking about Bayley, the women's revolution she made, and her challenger Asuka. We then got a recap of that match and a Bayley interview. He said that Asuka was probably her toughest challenge to date and asked what went wrong during her match. Bayley first congratulated Asuka. She said it was hard for her to wrap her head around the match and what happened. She said that Asuka was pretty much countering everything she did, and then she was just on a whole nother level. Bayley said that she let the kids that look up to her, she let her family down, but she said that she's planning to come back and get much better. So I think Bayley's not done on NXT just yet. We might get another Bayley-Asuka match. Kelly then transitioned into talking about Elias Sampson. We saw the post-match attack that he made on Johnny Gargano about a couple weeks ago, and then Apollo Crews making the save. She also mentioned that Crews and Sampson will face later tonight. After some highlights of the Baron Corbin-Austin Aries match, the Invisible Man interviewed Aries. He asked about his thoughts from his first match on NXT. Aries said that he's the most polarizing man in pro wrestling, or sports entertainment, if you will. I kind of disagree. I think that's John Cena, but he said that people love him or hate him, and he's out there to prove something to himself, not anyone else. You heard Nakamura, Sami Zayn dueling chants in the background as well. He said that Austin Aries isn't going anywhere for a long time. Kelly then said that Austin Aries will be in action next week, but not to feel bad for Baron Corbin either, because he won the Andre the Giant Battle Royal at WrestleMania. Speaking of that, I was not expecting him, and if they were going to win, if you guys were following along my Twitter, I mentioned this, but if they wanted him or planned for him to win, why not give him an entrance? Just having them walk out there with the rest of the jobbers that are in the match kind of just brushed it under the rug. But if he got a entrance of his own, one, you would have heard the crowd reaction to him, that an NXT star is debuting on WrestleMania, and two, his win would have been a lot more, it would have been a lot better. I get it, they want to go with the surprise route, that the guy that just brushed under the rug got the win, but making him the big deal is a good way to go. With a nice little segue, she talked about the NXT Championship being the biggest trophy on NXT. Backstage, Balor said that Joe is a monster, and he just keeps coming and coming. He said that London was a battle and Dallas was a war, and he's not sure how much more he can give to stop Joe. Balor said that he didn't win, he merely survived the challenge. He put over Samoa Joe huge in this interview here, that he's just a monster, he can't be stopped, and he's surprised that he walked out with the title himself. Someone tried getting comments from Joe, but he just stared and then walked away. We got a recap of Elias Sampson interrupting Crews' celebration last week before heading to a commercial break, and another No Way Jose vignette. I don't even care at this point. Back from that was the first and only match of the show, Elias Samson versus Apollo Crews. This was obviously aired before the actual takeover, and it's for good reason. The match wasn't the greatest, but let me get into some of the highlights of the match. Samson tried singing a song for Dallas. He was met with some "You Suck" chants and "We Want Wrestling" chants. Apollo Crews' music hit before he can get the song going. Samson took Crews down with a sliced bread number 2 into a headlock. Crews broke free, hit a nice drop kick, and Crews had him in a wrist lock after that, dragged him to the outside with it still intact. Samson swept the legs of Crews on the apron, which led to a first commercial break. Samson was still in control from the break, and he stayed in control for a few minutes. Apollo Crews had a couple of hope spots. Crews came back with a strike and began his comeback. I think he had like an uppercut or an open palm strike. He connected with a corner splash and the flying clothesline. He then hit his jumping heel kick. Samson left, but Crews brought him back to the ring, and he landed a moonsault from the apron. Crews then continued with his press slam, but Samson blocked the standing moonsault. Samson then connected with his high knee, and he got a nice near fall. Crews then caught Samson off the ropes with a bicycle kick, and then hit his tossing powerbomb to get the win. Overall, the match was what it was. Nothing spectacular, just an undercard match to get the crowd going. Apollo Crews getting the win here. I don't know if that makes sense if he's not on NXT anymore. Is he done with NXT now that he appeared on Raw? But it was just a decent match for what it was. Elias Samson still needs a lot of work, and Apollo Crews, his last 2 matches, this one and his match on Raw, he didn't do the sit-out part of the powerbomb, so I don't know if they took that away from him, or it's just something he can't do with some of the guys. He was able to do it with Alex Riley, which is surprising, but he didn't do it against Tyler Breeze on Monday, and he didn't do the sit-down part against Elias Samson. So I don't know if they're just having him do the tossing standing. We'll see next week if he has a match. Samson does have heat, but it's more go-away heat at this point, not heel heat, because he really hasn't done much. But the fans are reacting to him, so I guess that's a good thing. I guess that's the Eva Marie syndrome there. Corey Graves and Tom Phillips then threw to a Sami Zayn Nakamura highlight package. Zayn, after the match, looking exhausted. He was interviewed. He said that he was excited, and this was one of the hardest battles of his career. He said that the post-match handshake from Nakamura showed respect, and he got respect from the fans as well. He said it was hard to put into words, but it meant a lot to him. Nakamura was then interviewed. He had Funaki next to him to translate. He was asked about being in front of NXT Universe. He gave his answer for Funaki to translate, but he cut him off and then merely said, "Strong Style has arrived." And we also got word that Shinsuke Nakamura will be in action next week as well. Kathy Kelly then thanked us for joining her, and then to tune in next week, and the show went off the air. So it was more of a highlight package from NXT TakeOver Dallas. We got the one match that was taped, but it was just a follow-up of any progressing storylines and pushing some stuff forward for next week, as this is pretty much a new chapter, possibly even a new book for NXT with all the guys that were called up. So if you guys didn't see, actually, let me get into that. The night after WrestleMania, always a big deal. We got a lot of call-ups from NXT, a lot of people making their debut. So we had, as I mentioned, Apollo Crews made his debut. Later in the show, Enzo and Cass made their debut. Also, Baron Corbin wasn't in action this week, but... Wait, was he? He was, actually. He actually faced Dolph Ziggler on Monday, and then he posed with the Andre the Giant trophy. So you have those 4. The Vaudevillains are making their debut on SmackDown Friday night, so that's 2 more people gone. Emma has also been appearing on Raw and SmackDown, so I don't know if she got the call-up as well, but that's another superstar gone. They held off on doing the Finn Balor Bullet Club, Bulletproof, whatever they want to call it, which is smart because that would pretty much decimate the NXT roster. So they do have a good group of guys right now. You still have Joe and Balor leading the pack. Corbin and Crews are gone, so those are your number 2 babyface and heels, respectively. 2 tag teams are gone in Enzo and Cass and the Vaudevillains, most likely. So you're kind of left with Blake and Murphy, Jason Jordan, Chad Gable, Dash and Dawson. I don't know what they're doing with the Hype Bros because Zack Ryder won and then lost the Intercontinental Championship. So there's a lot of moving parts. You also got the new guys that came in, Austin Aries, Nakamura. Sami Zayn's probably done with NXT, so it's a lot of moving parts, but the NXT roster is still going to be entertaining. It's most likely going to be better than Raw for right now. If they do any more call-ups, that could change with the new talent debuting on Raw, because it's gotten pretty stale. So with all these call-ups, actually, they could be doing a brand split, bringing all these guys up, have a deep enough roster. You get guys coming back from injury. Cesaro just came back at on Monday in the Fatal 4-Way match. John Cena seems to be back. maybe a couple more months, but he's coming. Seth Rollins eventually will be back. So you got guys coming in, guys returning, the new guys coming up. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But the NXT roster, it's still pretty strong. They did a good job replacing the guys that they knew they were losing. So they're not going to be diving deep into the roster to get some action. They have some main event level guys already, which is nice. So next week, like I said, we have Austin Aries and Nakamura in separate matches. Other than that, I have no idea what's going on, but tune in next week to find out with episode 59. Peace.